Hi, my name is Shaye, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I have an interesting topic. I wanted to talk about the term that's been floating in my head is sacrificial lamb, which sounds dramatic, but I think people have heard that term either from biblical reference, right, or in the literal sense. If you've ever eaten a lamb, at some point it was sacrificed. Maybe not in the religious sense, but it was killed. But it's been floating in my head in terms of people and roles, people's roles within community, relationships, family, etc., what have you. A sacrificial lamb representing the person who gets early on, right, in those dynamics, identified as the person who has something that benefits the larger group. It might be a talent, it might be a skill, it might be an ability, right, that can help foster some form of prosperity for everyone else. Oftentimes, the sacrificial lamb doesn't even know. They don't even know what they possess. They don't know what they're capable of. They are just happy to be there and serve everyone. The sacrificial lamb gets fattened up with praises and compliments and accolades and everyone's nudging to keep going, right? Keep going, keep doing what you're doing, while they get to take whatever they want to serve their purpose, their means, right? And they're often aware that the sacrificial lamb is not attuned to the fact that they are solely existing to serve everyone else but themselves. And they're attuned because while they're busy doing the praising and the accolading and the fattening and the nudging, um, they are serving themselves. They're very much serving themselves. They're making sure their needs are met. They're making sure their future goals are met. They're making sure their prosperity is fed. While they watch the sacrificial lamb toil and sacrifice and suffer, right? And stay engaged sometimes to serve, again, the larger goal, the larger community. One could say, well, everyone has their role to play. Perhaps that is the role that should be played, right, in those dynamics. Like someone has to sacrifice. And I would say the extent of sacrifice is what I question in this rant that I'm having. There's always something to sacrifice for the prosperity of others. There's always something to be given up or to be, for lack of better language, taken, right, for someone else. But the extent to which it happens is what I question, right? When you get to the point that this, again, for lack of better language, sacrificial lamb has spent an enormous amount of time serving that role, serving that purpose, to the point that the role becomes an identity. And everyone, at least the key people, the key players or contributors to allowing this to occur, either stand aside and watch or continue to do it. And maybe one day even After years of doing it, that lamb finally wakes up and goes, I don't want this. I too want things, right? That you want. I too want to have some of the things that you've been able to have off of my back. When the lamb finally starts to try to attempt to shake these things off, starts to try to attempt to utilize its ability, its skills, its resources for itself, and is met with resistance, is met with isolation, is met with manipulation. That's why I question the extent of why that role existed. What that role has now evolved into serving. Where, again, the term sacrificial lamb. The lamb just exists for slaughter. The lamb is no longer a living thing that can have aspirations of its own, have desires of its own. Perhaps, God forbid, put itself before the community. Yeah, it has me questioning. This role, the sacrificial lamb. And if you find yourself playing it, you should ask yourself those questions too. What will happen if you wake up one day and decide you no longer want to do that? You no longer want to serve everyone else. Will you still be surrounded with the same level of love, attention, and care that you currently have? Will you still have the same people knocking on your doors, picking up the phone to call you? How quickly will your world go quiet if you make that decision? And as airy as that sounds, it might be necessary for the next thing. It might be necessary to evaluate and maybe feel that silence and maybe feel that isolation to realize you don't have the right people. You don't have the right support. You're not where you desire. You might be where other people desire. Great for them, right? But at the end of the day, it's your life. Are you where you desire? So, yeah, this one won't be long, but it's basically an ode to the sacrificial lamb. And whoever is currently playing that role and toiling at that role and taking pride in that role and championing a whole herd of people on your neck, let me stop for a second and ask yourself those questions. What would happen if for once I decide I just want to focus on me and I don't want to pour into other people's buckets any longer? I want to finally figure out what I want. What would happen to the support around you? What would happen to your village? What will happen? Who knows? Anyway, I hope that gives you some food for thought, and I hope you're having a good summer so far. All right. See you in the next one.